कैवल्य क्लीं कैवल्य
Namaste. Welcome to Kaivalya Yoga Gurukulam for the Kaivalya Marga class. Again, this new setup is kind of a little challenging on the technical side. Every time we restart or reboot the computer, something or the other goes on. But so apologize for this couple of minutes delay. I know with Baba's training, you cannot afford to go even a minute behind schedule. So I am deeply sorry for this, but we are learning. We'll get there. We'll try and perfect it. So welcome to this class. We are going to continue after a long break. And we are continuing to learn the water element. So let us begin this class getting into a state of mindfulness by chanting the 3 Ohms and opening our mind to receiving ideas, opening our mind to new horizons of thought. So with the prayer, we begin this session. We have been studying the water element from the Sri Jambukeshwar temple in South India. I say it is from that temple. This temple behind me is just a backdrop. It's not the Sri Jambukeshwar temple. But I say we are studying it from that temple is simply because that is the place for the water element. That is where many hundreds and thousands of years ago, the sages discovered that as a portal where there is a the presence of powerful water element. And there is so much now science and so much theories coming behind these temples and understanding. But the bottom line is there seems to be a consciousness of greater awareness and understanding as to how these temples were not simply built by someone with blind beliefs, but someone who had great, not only architectural knowledge, not only a great knowledge of geometry and trigonometry, but they also were trying to symbolize the cosmos in the walls of these temples, in the pillars of these temples. And I go even one step further to believe that in addition to just symbolizing these elements and cosmic energies in the temple, they actually were able to locate these cosmic forces where we could learn to harness these energies and use those energies for our own self-empowerment. So such are these portals. That's why I keep calling them portals, because they are places where your mind opens to higher learning, higher wisdom, and so on. So it's a fascinating place. So let's go to that temple, get a darshan of that temple, and start from there. So we are studying the Panchabhutas, and sorry. This is what happens when Maya doesn't help me and I'm on my own. Without Shakti, Shiva is of no use, right? It's like that. Okay, so this is the temple I was talking about, the Sri Jambukeshwar temple. It's a fascinating temple. And so this is where I went, and I had shown you clips in the previous classes as well. I don't know if there's any other clip left. If there is something left, I'll show you in the next class, which hopefully will be the last, and we'll cover the water element in its entirety. But I have a few important points more to discuss on the water element. And so let's take it from there. All right. So what have we learned so far? We learned about the six tastes and the five elements, right? So that kind of crystallizes our understanding of how important water element is from the point of view of the tongue, from the point of view of taste. Like I've already explained this a lot more in detail, so I don't want to um, repeat them, even though we have come after a break. But I want to reiterate the fact that the water element is predominantly located in the tongue. That is the one of the sense organs. The other one is the sexual organs, and these two are connected by water element. Okay. So in that context, we had studied a sense of taste, how to control taste, the tongue from a taste point of view. Speech comes later. Okay, that tongue is not connected with speech as such. Tongue, in our understanding from the elements point of view, tongue plays a role in the water element. Speech and mouth comes with space and sound, so that comes in separately. Will come much later. We learn about sound element. So from the point of view of taste element, we studied the six tastes that we need to. And if some of you have already heard these, hopefully you have begun to incorporate some of these learnings into your everyday life. That is the purpose. Otherwise, if you're simply listening to it and not making an attempt to incorporate some of it into your everyday life, then you won't remember what you learned. Then you forget it, right? But when you start incorporating, like the six tastes, what are the six tastes? Sweet, madhura; sour, amla; astringent, kashaya; then you have salty, lavanya; pungent, katu; and bitter, tikta. If you are able to get all these six tastes in every meal, if not every meal, at least once every day. When I say bitter, you have to taste the bitterness in the food. The tongue has to taste something bitter, and you have to say, oh, this is really bitter. Okay. uh, and it's okay, to a large extent these things are also subjective, but there is something like bitterness is kind of, there is a commonality in bitterness. Somebody can't take a bitter gourd, for example, and find it sweet. They might like the taste, that doesn't mean it is sweet. They like the taste of bitterness, right? Garlic has its own taste. Some may like the taste, some may not like the taste, but the taste is pungent. So you have to look at these. Do I get pungent food in my pungent taste in my food? Do I get a bitter taste in my food? Do I get astringent taste in my food? Where is the sour taste in my food? What will constitute sourness in my food today? Salt, of course, to a large extent, most of us in all across all continents and across all cultures, salt has become kind of a standard thing in diets. So salt is perhaps there, and sweet, of course, has taken many forms. We talked about, um, maybe not in detail, but I'll come to it more in detail when we talk about the fire element and digestion and health. That's more related to the food aspect of it. I'm talking here about the taste aspect. So sweet, again, what kind of sweets? You have sweet from jaggery, you have sweet from white sugar and other chemicals. So I'm not talking of that. When Ayurveda and yoga talks about sweetness in your food, and though today medical science is frowning upon sweet and all of that, everybody frowns on the white sugar. So in the Vedic mantras, when you hear sharkara, sharkara is a Sanskrit name for sweet, sharkara, which we call chakra in Tamil and shakkar in Hindi and so on. So sharkara is sugar, but not this sugar that you and I eat today in the form of crystals. It is jaggery. Because it's from sugar cane, they called it sugar. We call it jaggery today. So predominantly that was the form of sweetness, along with so many other, like you had palm fruits and palm dates and dates and palms and all of that. So all of that, there are different varieties of sweets. So you can bring fruits in this category of sweets and see how that helps in taste. Again, when you're considering an overall diet, you're considering you can't indulge too much in sweet fruits, in very ripe fruits. Again, from the point of view of health, I'll come to it again. We'll revisit it in the fire. Between the fire element and the water element, we'll get a good idea of what constitutes a healthy kind of a food. These are what I'm saying are not is not therapeutic in nature. It doesn't apply to one particular illness or person or a group or a community, but we are talking of general things. Now you have to obviously use common sense and say, all right, this is good, but it's not going to be applicable for me because of my age or because of the medications I am taking, because of certain medical complexities in my body. It may not apply, and that's okay. So you don't please take everything that I say, especially with regard to food, with a pinch of salt. There is no standard one solution for everyone. That is why we talked about the vata, pitta, and kapha. Understand your body types, understand where you are naturally inclined, and start pulling yourself away from it. If you are naturally inclined to kapha, which is earth, like if you see here, earth and water element, is where is earth and water element here? In sweet. Where else is earth and water element? Nowhere else. So both earth and water combined becomes very heavy, because water flows down, earth flows down. That means your energy goes down. In other words, you become heavier and heavier, not lighter. Correct? So think of, if you're naturally drawn towards sweet, that means your body is naturally has a lot of kapha in it. Okay, so that is how you analyze tastes, and then say, okay, I need to now control that taste. I need to include this taste. What is exactly opposite? Air and ether could be opposite to earth and water. Now, I know you don't like me saying that, but bitter comes then, right? So in order to counter that, how do I now, shall I include more bitterness in my food? You will say, why do I have to eat bitter? Please believe me, my dear brothers and sisters, I'm also not a fan of bitter. But then I realize that you and I and all of us are victims of this constant inceptions that have been put into our child right from our childhood, that somehow bitterness, we got to repulse away from bitterness and go only towards sweet. All this kind of things has become somehow part of the culture, and we are passing it on, unfortunately, to our children. Because we don't eat bitter, it's not in our system, and when we produce children, they naturally not, their DNA and none of their body biological systems are tuned to the kind of food that we eat. So it goes long into our ancestral heritage. So we are caught in that vicious cycle, but it doesn't mean we cannot break it. If you're conscious about it, then you consciously say, all right, I need to have something bitter in my food on an everyday basis. Then you bring air and ether, space comes in. Then your voice stays strong. You are able to sing, you are able to talk, or you are able to vocalize. There is energy in your voice, there is intelligence in your voice, all of that comes in automatically. It is because of these connections is where the Sadgurus and the Gurus who would sit and look at you, listen to you, in 2 minutes they will know exactly what is wrong with you. So is there magic to it? No. There is a law, a universal law that is available to you and me as well. But the reason why we don't understand it is because we use it as a theory. We listen to it, we like it. When we don't practice it, we forget it. That is why I said, try and incorporate these 6 tastes. Then you will begin to understand, what is this again, bitter? Why again am I doing it? Then you'll come back to you. I'm getting air and ether element, raising the air and ether element in my system, which means I'm becoming more lighter, more agile, rather than focusing on earth and water. Not that they are bad, they all have to be balanced. Again, too much of air and ether, too much of fire and air increases acidity and all of that. So you have to understand this and apply this diligently on an everyday basis. Then your life, this is what I mean by mindful living, self-empowered living, mindful living. Then when you practice yoga, then when you practice meditation, the elements are you're already tuned into the elements, right from every food you're eating, everything that you're doing, you're tuning into the elements, and therefore those meditations become far more powerful. Then the whole day becomes your meditation, because it is a mindful living. Right? Then when you sit for quote unquote meditation, that experience is completely different, because now you're truly dealing with elements on an everyday basis. So with water element, please pay attention to your tastes and see how you are going, in which direction you're going with your tastes. Which of the elements is driving you more towards itself? They are all, when I say elements are in harmony and balance. Each one is fighting for place in your body, correct? So that is going to be a constant struggle, and that's part of creation, right? When you have mountains, you have valleys, you have summer, then it's followed by autumn, and then you have winter. So that is part of creation. The up and down is part of creation. That's what makes it beautiful, right? So never think that this is going to be one time achievement, and then my elements are going to be balanced for forever. It doesn't happen that way. The moment we lose our guard, once again we will start going towards what we are naturally inclined to, what our natural body systems are. If I'm predominantly vata or predominantly kapha, based on my DNA and the heritage that I have, the hereditary things that I have acquired, then I will start drifting back towards those. Then a mindful living will bring me back up. Okay, so it was in that context we discussed the 6 days. This is so very important, the 6 days. Please write it down and put it in your refrigerator door, so you'll remember, okay, which is the taste I've not have my children taste, and talk them and sell the idea of bitterness, and enjoy it together. So it won't be that bad. All right. So that is as far as the 6 tastes are concerned. Then we come to another important aspect in this understanding of water. We're going to talk of water and emotions. You know how emotions are emotions steady? No, right? The emotions are always, when you talk of oh, he's a very emotional person, what does that mean? He or she has mood swings. They are constantly either happy or sad or angry or upset. So there's constant fluctuation. So water and emotions have a relation. Now, when you don't say earth and emotions have a relation, both start with the letter E. Other than that, really, I don't see anything else, because earth is solid, rock solid. It is set, it's made up its mind, it's jada, right? I can talk of laziness and talk of earth, immobility and talk of earth, sluggishness to a large extent and talk of earth. But there is sluggishness in the water also. When water mixes with earth, it becomes sluggish, right? So there is some element of water, but these are all earthy qualities. But when you talk of emotions, you are talking predominantly of water element. So once again, water is where you got to focus on if you want to harness the energy of emotions, control it, and channelize it. So let us understand it a little more. So I was thinking, what examples can I give for the water and emotions, and to emphasize the importance of water and what role does it play. I thought of 3 characters: Mira, Moses, and Masaru Emoto is a Japanese guy, very recent. Moses, 2000 years old or 5000 years old, I would think. uh, Mira, a few hundred years old. Uh, Mira, and I talk of Mira, I'm talking of Sant Mira, the Saint Mira, Mirabai, as she's known, from the North India. She was lost in Krishna consciousness. She had a complete emotional upheaval, if you will. I don't know if that's the right term, but a very different level of emotion. Bhakti, devotion, is also emotion, but also it's a completely different animal, if you will, altogether. You can't compare bhakti. The yearning in bhakti is the same as yearning in our worldly sense. We say we yearn for a car, a yearn for a good home. That yearning and that desire is very different from desire for divinity, divine exploration, the yearning and the tears that roll there. That's a very different, heightened emotion. So we are talking of that level of emotion. That's why I wanted to bring that here. The power of emotions is so great. So we'll take Mira's example. Or why not Moses? Let's start with history. Moses is the oldest. So let's start with Moses. Should have been Moses, Mira, and Masaru. Sounds rhymey. Moses, Mira, and Masaru. So let's go. I hope I'm saying Masaru correctly. It's a Japanese name. I don't know how to say it. Anyway, Moses. Moses, what was one of the greatest miracles of Moses? He parted the sea. So he was redeeming his people, and he took them. He brought them to Israel, but then he parted the Red Sea, the entire sea. How did he part the sea? He parted the sea by simply asking it to part, by saying. His words, along with his mind, was so in tune that the water element began to obey him. In other words, he controlled the water element with the power of sound, and more important than just sound, it was the emotion behind it. He was completely in tune with the divine, and so he was able to part the water. Okay, now you might say that's way too much. That's way too back in history. And of course, Rama and the entire army built a bridge over the water. So that's another thing. Hanuman jumped over water. So there are a lot of water related incidents in our scriptures that seem to indicate the connection, deep connection between the power of water, the ability and the direct control of water with in relation to where our mind is, where our emotions are, how tuned we are. Mirabai is another example. What is that example? She was given a cup filled with poison to drink. She was so lost in Krishna consciousness that when she drank, the poison did not affect her. Poison had no effect on her body. That means her immune system was so highly developed that the poison had no effect. So now later on when we are going to talk, not today in today's class, definitely I won't have the time to explain it. I need to explain it more in detail, but when we talk about Vajroli Mudra, we're going to talk about some things which might sound fantastical in the sense of Vajroli Mudra, the person doesn't get affected by poison and so on and so forth. Those kind of things may not be simply some hyperbolic statements or exaggerated statements. There must be an element of truth in them, because they teach you how to harness the energy of water in your body. Now you can do it through yogic methods, or you can do it through Mirabai's, where through sheer devotion she transcended. So she's not even aware of all these capabilities of consciousness and affecting water molecules and re-changing the molecules in the water to the extent that it became sweet, a sweet drink. So we say Vish became Amrit, it became nectar. But the point here is, how did it become nectar? Same story going back in our Puranas is the gods and demons wanted to discover nectar, correct? And what did they do? Did they go down, dig deep into the earth? No. They went to the ocean and began churning the ocean to come out with the nectar. First came poison and all of that, but then came nectar from the ocean, churning of the ocean. Again, water element. Controlling and churning the water element is where this nectar that we are seeking will arise from within. So it's very important to understand that consciousness and water are very closely linked, very powerfully linked. And by understanding that, we learn to control water, because then we know that we can control our emotions, and through our emotions we can control water, through water we can control emotions. Now, Meera and Moses are two good examples. I also touched upon Ramayana, and those stories we probably know also. Masaru Emoto, I think. Some of you may have already read about him. He's all over the Google. Masaru Emoto did experiments in water elements. He found how the molecules of water rearrange themselves, and you could rearrange them by connecting to them through emotions. Just like the scientist Bose in India talked to plants and connected to the earth element of the plants, here Masaru said that you can connect emotionally to water and rearrange the water molecules. That's fascinating, right? Of course, science doesn't like it. They call them, they don't like, because they need more proof, more experiments. some of these things, let us not wait for science um, to endorse it. We'll be waiting for a very long time because their approach is very different. When you take the approach of consciousness, intuition, meditation, faith, belief, it's a very different approach. It's unscientific, of course, there's no doubt about it. One is not better than the other, one is just different from the other. So, this path is your personal, you have the freedom to do it. You don't need degrees to do that. You just need to take your first step and go dive right in to experience it for your own self. Science, you have to wait for somebody to do the hard work and give you, and you have to believe whatever they publish. At this point, at least, it seems that way. So, science doesn't like the idea that you can change water molecules with your emotions, but I believe we can. Why is it that I believe we can? Because of what the rishis say. I have great faith in the words of our rishis and sages. I didn't at one point in time. When I was a teenager, I had so much of pujas and rituals going on in my house. I was fed up with it. I didn't want to do anything with it. I thought it was all blind belief. But after staying in Prashant Liyam, after staying with Baba, I began to understand the deeper significance, the meaning, the wisdom of these sages and rishis. So what do they say? What are they saying to us? They say that water and our emotions have an intrinsic relation. They don't just say it, they teach us how to do it. So we talk of rituals, right? In one of the rituals, basically before any puja, um, the priest sits down. Nowadays, only the priest does it. So I say the priest sit down. But if you're doing puja at home, you sit down. The first thing that you do is you sip 3 spoonfuls of water. So we call that achamanam. Achaman karo. Achaman, I think they call it in Hindi. Achamanam in Tamil, in Sanskrit. So you take water, one sip, you say Achyutaya Namaha, Anantaya Namaha, Govindaya Namaha. What did you do? You took 3 sips of what? You took of water. You took sips of water. Now, one theory is, before you go into puja, and those days the pujas that are prescribed are for long durations. These days we want everything done very quickly. But those days it was long durations, and therefore, just before starting, they would say, let me take a sip of water so I let thirst not come in the way, and let me focus on the puja. Right? That is one theory. The other theory is, in addition to cleansing our body externally, before I start doing all the nyasa, I want to take this water and cleanse internally. But not just any water. Water which has Achyutaya Namaha, Achyuta, Achyutaya Namaha, Govindaya Namaha. So you are taking the water, and with emotion you're putting the name of God into it. That means the water molecules will change, and when you drink it, it will create a cleansing, build your immune system and cleanse. That is the power it was in those days. We have messed it up. So don't just say, okay, I'm doing Achyutanama, Anantayanama, Govindanama, why I'm not getting healthy. Think of what happens after the puja. What do you eat? What is the prasad you put in the puja? So that counters everything. So don't take what I say on the face value of it, but understand how they did that. Then in these pujas, they would have kalash. What is called kalash? Kalasha is a pot with water in it. Now, in every ancient temple in India, in South India especially, in the Gopuram is the main gate to the temple, right? In the main top of the tower, there will be a copper kalasha, a pot of copper with water in it. And it will be there for 12 years. Every 12 years, they do a kumbha abhishekam. So they will, kumbha means pot. So they will remove that pot and they will replace that water in that pot. That water, because of the mantras that are chanted, that water harnesses divine energies, draws in divine powerful energies from the cosmos and passes it down through the granite that was specifically made through the earth. It passes it down so that when you pass in and out, you get the blessings automatically. Now, of course, it's a matter of belief. But that is the power of water. But in the puja, that is in the temples. So in the pujas, what they will do is they will keep the water pot filled with water, and they will decorate it and do the puja, and keep it there. Throughout the puja, the water is getting absorbing all the energies. And then they will take that water and do the abhishekam, and then take that abhishekam water, jala from abhisheka, you call jala in Sanskrit. So jala or water from that, and they will sip it or drink it or use it for cooking and so on, the water which is unused. Because water done in this manner, water consumed after such things, the molecules of water has changed. Now it has become very healthy. Because people who do that, you have to not just, now I'm teaching water elements, so we are focusing on water, right? Because otherwise we'll get lost. But there is also a sound element that is impacting water. So how to practice sound element will come when we come to sound element. So eventually you will learn to synthesize all this. But look at it just from the importance that the rishis, the sages in our ancestors in the Vedic times have given importance to the water element. So it is true that water, the life on this planet is determined by water, and we all are evolved from the water. The very first incarnation of the divine, Vishnu, is what? Matsya Avatara, in the water. So from water, life has emerged. So all of this is beyond doubt. But water is not simply one that gives life. What kind of life it's given? Think of it. Look around the planet. What kind of life has mushroomed just from that one element, water? Of course, other elements also played a role, but predominantly, um, water is where we were born, literally, if you will. The seminal juices is water based, so it is from water that life evolves. Correct? So that is one part of it, but then there is a lot of intelligence from that water, intelligence that science has not yet discovered, a coded intelligence, universal intelligence that is inherent in every molecule of water, because it is that same water in some form. Is just looking at it very simply, right? Water molecules in some form, in the form of seminal juices, has the ability to give birth to life. What power must be there in water? And so the rishis and sages said, this is the power of water, and therefore conserve water and let us channelize this energy for greater purposes. And so there are many, many practices around water. So water in your body, my dear sisters and brothers, is what I'm trying to say is, bottom line, is water in our body is connected with our emotions, heart chakra, and it opens and connects to the universe. So water is a very powerful, powerful energy. The sense of tastes and emotions. If you are upset, what do you do? If you're very sad, what do you do? Just in order to feel happy, you go and take a bar of chocolate, or eat ice cream or something, right? Momentarily, you get a little peace. Oh, I'm so upset. I'm just so upset. Give me something to eat, and you'll put some extra sugar in your coffee or something and make it sweet. Something you do, because when your emotions are not under control, the sense of taste also loses control. This is where we are. We are all not emotional. We don't have emotional roller coasters every day. But believe me, we have taken a lot of things as normal, which are actually abnormal. A lot of things that we go through every day, we're taking it as a normal, but which is actually abnormal. Which is why the lifespan, instead of increasing with all this advanced technology and medicine and science, we have not increased our lifespan. My grandfather and great grandfather also lived equally the same length of life that you and I are living today, for the most part, right? There are always exceptions to this. So today the average lifespan is 60, 70. And back in Mahabharata times, it's believed to be 120 years old and more. That is why the astrological chart would be done for 120 years. That is how they would study this, the chart. After 60 years, they will say, now you're beginning to live. So that's a very different thing. The warriors fought wars when they were 80, 70, 80 years old. So it is a very different lifestyle. Sense of taste and emotions. So when our emotions are constantly in a state of flux, stormy, if you will, then the sense of taste is very difficult to control. So sense of taste and emotions are very closely related. What is common between laughter and sadness? That is a question I've put out here. What is common? When you laugh uncontrollably, when you laugh your heart out, what happens? You get tears in your eyes. When you're extremely sad and you cry, overcome with emotions, what happens? You get tears in your eyes. Are these tears of happiness? Are these tears of sadness? Only you will know that. But tears, in other words, water. So whenever there is extreme swing of emotion, so there is your proof, right? Right there. Emotions and water element in your body are connected. So the Sthita Prajna is the concept of equanimity. Sounds very robo-like, I'm not a robo, I'm just a human being. It's natural for me, we say. Sthita Prajna, as taught in the Gita, is a very profound concept. It's a concept that teaches us to balance this water element. Not only just balance, it harness the energy of the water element. That is why in the Jambukeshwar temple, it's called Jambukeshwar, we talked about the symbolism of the elephant and the spider. That is the power of water, as powerful as the elephant. When you think of the elephant, you think of mightiness, power. That is the energy of water that lies in our body. Now, if science tells you, and it has already, that 2/3 of our body content is water, what would you do? How important, therefore, it is for us to control the water. That is why there was so much emphasis, water-based rituals surrounding water. That it's very important to have water element in your sadhana, in your rituals. That is why in yogasana you create flexibility. Flexibility is movement. You begin to move the pranic energies in your body. The body moves, the prana moves, the breath moves, right? All of this begins the water-like. Water is actually connected to the Shakti principle. If Surya is Shiva, then Chandra, moon, is Gauri. In Vedic astrology, each of these grahas, they have Adi Devata and Pratyadi Devata. So, Pratyadi Devata of Surya is Rudra, fiery, mighty, powerful. Pratyadi Devata of the moon, so the sun is Rudra, Shiva. Of the moon, the Pratyadi Devata is Gauri. So, moon represents water. Exactly opposite, sun represents fire. So, Gauri is Shakti. The entire creation is come into existence because of that energy. So, today we have life in the planet is because of the moon. If something happens to the moon, you and I won't be having satsangs anymore. We would have merged into the fiery aspect of Shiva. The moon helps that. Moon controls the waves, the ebb and flow of the waves, the cycle of the moon. So, moon and water are related. This was found thousands of years ago in the Vedas. That moon and water is related. Moon is connected to water. Since our 2/3 of our body is water, there is a relation between us and the moon, us and water, and so on and so forth. So think of all these connections and see how you can channelize water into your everyday life. So this statement I've put out there is not for everyone. Again, that's why I put a disclaimer right in the beginning that please take everything that I say with a pinch of salt. Are we good? Okay. Fasting without water helps in controlling emotions. Now, if there are some of you who are going through, let's say, menopausal symptoms and so on and so forth, a good thing for you, if you don't have any other medical issues, if you're going through middle-age crisis, men, teenagers, if you're going through puberty and teenage-related issues, consider fasting. And we talked about fasting already, right? Fasting without water, You can't do this for extended periods of time. It's not considered very healthy. It's a very intense way to do it. So don't get too very excited and start saying I'm going to do a 24-hour fast without water right away, because it changes. In peak winter here, I can afford to do longer hours than in summer where I sweat a lot more, right? So you have to determine. Now, if I sit here and tell you to do it, and you are in India where it's already beginning to become warm, especially in South India, then it just doesn't make sense. So please understand this and understand the context. Having said all that, water, when you fast and you remove water from your diet, you can to a large extent find a sense of deep quietness and calmness coming upon you. Your mind will immediately say, I'm feeling very weak. That is a way to interpret that. But if you take one step above that and look more deeper, your meditation will become fantastic. That is why they would say, before puja, don't eat, don't even sip water before doing puja. Why? Because your mind is very calm. The water has not gone in and upset and created ripples in your consciousness. So first thing in the morning, before you do anything, start meditating. These are the kind of reasons why they would give. Because water is connected to emotions and the mind and so on. So if you are having extreme emotional swings, and if you notice you're doing that, consider 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, depending on, of course, you got to train your body slowly to say, I'm not going to touch a sip of water. That doesn't mean you can go and eat an ice cream, because water is pretty much in everything. So you don't take anything, right? So consider those kind of practices, especially fasting without water is a very powerful way to bring emotions under control. That is why, so in Shivratri, what they would do, Shivratri, you sit, start chanting, and you forget sleep, you forget water, forget eating part of it, you forget drinking water, you forget sleep, you go dive deep into meditation, into chanting, into singing, into that consciousness. Now we assume it is impossible to do it, so we eat actually a lot more on Shivratri to stay awake, and we mess the whole practice is messed up. And we pat ourselves saying, I stayed up the whole night, so I'm going to sleep the next day morning. It beats the whole purpose. The point here was that in order to stay up, you fast. And the more you fast, the more your body will kick into that instinct of survival, right? So you will kick into that gear of being awake and alert. But you can't be so alert and so emotionally alive because there is no water, and therefore you will be awake but yet very calm and very deeply meditative, and you can slip into deep meditation. So understand this was the reason, or is the reasoning behind tapas and austerity. This is why fasting and all of that was prescribed as a spiritual practice. It somehow became religious, and then it's kind of messed up now. We end up feeling guilty if something happens and we break our fast and so on. But this is what is the connection. All right. Let me end a few more points because I want to keep the next class just to teach you the mudras. Some of these practical points I want to give you now at the end of all these 8 classes. And the 9th class, of course, will be a practical class teaching you the mudras. Couple of mudras, but very powerful, very beautiful mudras. Water element based sadhana. What kind of sadhana can you do? Therefore, having understood this importance of water, what can I do? What are the tips? Number 1, if you can, here's the first one. Swimming is a great thing. It's going back home, swim if you can. Now I don't have the privilege at this point. I have to take time and go. We used to swim regularly until we started the Gurukulam, and now there's of course no time. I don't know if weekends we'll start again. I'm not sure. But swimming is a great exercise just to be in the water. I know they add chlorine and then they mess it up. But ideally, some of you, I know there are some, I have many friends in Trinidad, and Trinidad is such a beautiful little island and such wonderful, clean water. They have rivers, they have the sea, and it is just amazing to go out and bathe in the sea on a full moon day or a new moon day. Those are all very powerful times to be in water. So what I would suggest, therefore, if you don't have a waterfall near you, if you don't have a river near you, if you don't have, I have a river in my backyard, but then there is a board that says sewage is connected to the river. So obviously, you don't expect me to go into the river, unfortunately. But sea, river, waterfall, if you get rain, be a child. It's okay to get wet in the rain. Think about it. So these are the beautiful ways you can bring water. So what happens if you don't have choice for all this? Then you have a shower. So in the shower, take your time to shower. Don't be in a rush, okay? Because that is when the water is bathing you. So feel it, enjoy the shower, okay? And while in the shower, chant mantras, because now, because of your chanting the mantras, because you raise your emotional level. Remember, emotion more than the sound part of it. Emotionally, you connect. That emotion will begin to, even slightly, even a fraction, if you are able to do it, the water molecules that come on your body are affected, and it helps you. In Dasara, in Prashantanilayam, where Maya and I studied for over a decade, we would have Navratri. And so in Navratri means 9 nights, right? Which we just did in November, October, November of every year it comes. So during these 9 nights, there's a Vedic yagna that goes on in the ashram. And Pandits from all over India come, and there's a huge fire that's lit up, and there's a kalash water that is kept there for 9 days, absorbing the energy of all these chants. And Baba's presence, he would move around it and all that. On the 10th day, the kalash water is that the cap is taken on cap, the coconut is removed, and the Pandit will hold it and come, and Baba would dip grass, that is kusa grass that they call it. He would dip, it's a kind of grass, medicinal grass, from which those days they would make mats for people to sit and practice yoga and all that. So he would dip in that, and he would sprinkle on all of us, and he would go around as many as he can. He will do it himself. What was that significance? Because that water had become so powerful, even the little droplets of that sprinkle is beneficial at whoever needs whatever, because water has that powerful um, way to help in balancing a lot of energy systems in your body. So consider having a little copper pot, hopefully it's clean inside out, fill it with water, leave it at the altar. The morning, do some puja, chant some mantras, and then take that water and mix it into the drinking water or use it for cooking. So bring water. I would dare call it, let's dare call it holy water. Make water holy and consume it. It's okay if people think you're crazy. Just do it. Because as you begin to do it, slowly the body builds immune system. Think of Meera, right? It won't happen overnight. Look at Meera's devotion. So that's a whole different story. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't do that. We learn from these. We learn our connection. We begin to respect. Then Mother Nature will show us more and more ways, give us more and more opportunities to respect that. So consume water with a mantra, consume water with a prayer. Every time you drink water, you sip water, consume with a prayer. Take one little mantra, even if it's Om Sri Sai Ram, Om Sri Sai Ram, Om Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Sita Ram, and drink. Whatever it is, right? Or simply an Om. Mentally lift the vibrations of your thought and drink it. Don't say, I'm so happy to drink water. Oh my God, this is so wonderful. You miss the point, right? It's not bad, but you miss the point. It's like having a truck full of money drove by, and you could have put your hand and grabbed it, but it just drove by. You'd missed it. That's the idea. So every time you sip water, just mentally, it's a quick thing. Mentally raise the vibration of your thought and drink the water. It becomes an abhisheka, internal abhisheka. Think that way. So think of that. Water and mantras go together always. Meditation tames and channelizes the water element. So this is where I'm going to stop here, because let me see what I have. Yeah. Meditation tames and channelizes water element. And so we learn more about meditation as we go along. This whole thing is about learning meditations. You cannot learn meditation without understanding all these concepts, the five elements, and there's so much to learn, right? But all of this builds strong foundations. It'll carry across lifetime. So please be patient with me. Um, Meditation along with mudras, especially the ones I'm going to teach you, is those will help you channelize the water element even more. They're connected directly to the water element. So the Vajroli Mudra, I put it here today because Vajroli Mudra, we already learnt it as part of the Moola Bandha when we studied the earth element. So I'm not going to repeat too much into it. We may touch upon it here and there, but I don't want to repeat myself there. The next class, I want to teach a very powerful mudra, and that is called the Kechari Mudra and what is known as the Viparita Karani Mudra. These are the two mudras along with Vajroli Mudra. These are the three mudras which every one of us can practice. Vajroli Mudra I've already talked about. The Kechari Mudra and Viparita Karani Mudra. These are the two mudras. Once you learn how to do it and practice it on an everyday basis, automatically your emotions will be under control. Automatically. And then not only will they be under control, you will be able to channelize that to higher. In other words, the same emotion. That's why I said yearning for God is different from yearning from materialistic things, but it is yearning nevertheless, right? Mirabai was able to transmute those emotions into bhakti. Transmute the emotions into bhakti. Think of water that has natural propensity to go down. You are going to learn to channelize the energy of water and move it upwards. That is what these mudras teach you. The Kechari Mudra channelizes the energy of water upwards. Very powerful practice, very subtle, very slow. I'm not promising anything in 2 weeks and 3 weeks. Very slow, but it channelizes the energy upwards. Viparita Karani, Viparita Karani. Viparita Karani is reversing, the one that reverses what? Reverses the flow. Viparita Karani Mudra, the mudra that reverses the flow of water. That which is going down, it reverses the flow of the energy, starts moving upwards. In earth, there is very less movement. It is still. So you have to break the earth. You have to open the earth. You have to flex it, break it into pieces, powder it. And that's why in the bottom of the ocean is sand, not rocks, but sand, right? The, the, in the bottom there is sand. That is why we covered this already, but it's worth mentioning. When you go to Kanchipuram, the earth element of lingam of Shiva is made of sand. Why? Because below the ocean, what is that? It's sand. So that is the earth element. The earth element can go into granules of sand. But the water, you can move it upwards. So Parvati took the earth element itself and made sand into a lingam. She took the grains and made it into a lingam. Now there is this other element where she becomes a disciple of Shiva in this temple. In Jambukeshwar, there is no romance between Parvati and Shiva. There is no yearning and no marriages are celebrated in that temple. She is a disciple. Shiva is a teacher. So it is a disciple-teacher relationship. It's more of a Gurukula relationship. Maybe that is why I had this impulse to do something for the temple, and we use some of the KYG funds to contribute to build that. I don't know. It was just all divinely guided. But that is what happens there. There it is teacher, because you need that relation and you need to move up towards the teacher. So, my dear sisters, brothers, think of these things. Incorporate water element, treat water with great reverence, just as you would treat earth with great reverence. And you understand how earth plays roles in the form of judgments. And when you made up your mind about something, it's very earthy. But when you have emotions swinging you back and forth, then it's watery. Think of how these forces play not only in the food that you eat, but also in thoughts. So the elements exist in our thoughts, element exists in around us in a physical form, because water exists as water, earth exists as earth, and so on. But we are so intricately connected. We are made up of these five elements. There is no spiritual practice, there is no spiritual growth without understanding and harnessing these energies. So, Thank you all for your patience. I think we're just about time to finish. So thank you all for your patience. And in the next class, I had some videos that I have to make this more clearer, how to do the Kechari Mudra, how to practice it, and so on. So be patient. We'll do that, and that class is the day after tomorrow. So until then, stay blessed, stay safe. I hope this information was useful to you all. As always, we'll end this class with one Om and three Shantis. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti